Greetings, Earthers, Martians, Belters, members of the OPA. Welcome to episode 12 of Expanse, the Unofficial podcast. I'm your host, Lex Starwalker.
And I'm your host, Nikki Starwalker.
Welcome back to the show, Nikki.
It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, I had to fly solo without you on episode 11, and it's good to have you back.
Thank you. Yes, you did, but you did very well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, Nikki, you heard the interview with Bob and Kaylin. What'd you think?
Oh, I thought it was a great interview. I mean, really nice work for everybody involved. Bob and Kaylin did a great job.
Yes, they did.
It was so nice to have them on. And I thought it was fascinating how they described their different roles. Kaylin as kind of an air traffic controller and Bob as a creative, which is definitely something that I can relate to.
Yeah.
And it sounded like they had a lot to juggle because they said they had 8 different organizations, 8 different maybe companies or entities, I think Bob put it, doing the visual effects. And I thought it was really interesting that Bob answered one of my questions, which was, when was he brought in? And he said that he's brought in when they're writing the script.
Even before.
Yeah. I mean, he's first on, basically.
Yeah, and it makes sense with a show like this because so much of the story is told through the visual effects. So it makes sense. And there's a particular scene in episode 4 of CQB that I want to kind of bring back the discussion that I had with Bob and Kaylin when we get there in the episode. That'll be fun. But yeah, I had a lot of fun talking to them. It sounds like they're keen to come back, which I am super excited for. And I know I've said it on the show before, and I know we kind of said it in the interview, but I just want to say again, for anybody listening, if you are involved with the making of this phenomenal TV show that we're all in love with, and you would like to come on the show and talk with us about The Expanse, we would love to have you. Whatever your job on the show is, no job is too menial. Even if you're the guy that sweeps the floors when everybody is done, I'll bet you've got some amazing stories to tell of things you've seen. So I'm open invitation, and of course, if any of the actors have time in their busy lives to come on the show, they're more than welcome as well. I don't want to sound like I'm like giving the actors the cold shoulder. I just assume that they're far too busy and important to talk to the likes of us. But anyone's welcome. We're huge fans of the show. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this if we weren't.
Yeah, it would be great to hear everyone's input.
Yeah. And, like I said in the interview, I'm really into behind the scenes stuff. I got the DVD sets for Star Trek The Next Generation back when I think I paid like $80 a season for those. It was when like DVDs were still a big deal. And, there's tons of behind the scenes interviews with not only the actors, but, directors, producers, people on the crew, people who did makeup, all this stuff. And that's what really kind of opened my eyes to how much really goes on to make a show like this that we don't even realize, that we don't see, and how there are probably hundreds of people involved in some way, shape, or form with making this show. And everything that every person does is so important. And pretty soon, if not already, everybody's going to know who Kaz Anvar is, and everybody's going to know who Stephen Strait is, and Dominique Tipper, but a lot of these people behind the scenes, they never really get their moment in the spotlight. And, if we can provide that by having you on our humble little podcast, we would be just tickled pink to do that. And I think that most, if not every person listening to this show would be as fascinated as we are to hear about anything from, how the visual effects are done to how the sound effects are done, how the makeup and costuming is done, or the music. There's just so many aspects, and I'm sure there are things that I don't even know exist.
Yeah, because for us, it's invisible.
Right. So yeah, that's my favorite episode we've done. And I didn't really do anything. I just kind of listened to them spout their wisdom.
Yeah. My favorite part was when one of them made the point that the show will reward the viewers.
Yeah.
And that is something that I love. If I'm a loyal viewer of a TV show, it really makes me happy when I find an Easter egg, for instance.
Yeah, now I want to go looking for Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Is there a shot where we see like R2-D2 float by or something? Like what kind of Easter eggs are we talking about here?
Right. I'd like to take the opportunity to say that I appreciate the kudos from Bob and Kaylin a lot. My part in the show, though, is very small. I basically just come on and talk. I'm the talent. But I want to take the opportunity to say that Lex does all the editing, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So thank you, Lex.
Yeah, no problem. On our, I think it was on my Google Plus post I made about the episode, friend of the show, Peter Gulka. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Sorry, Peter. Peter works really hard on the Expanse wiki. He made a comment that I actually take a lot of pride in. I know I shouldn't be prideful, but he said something along the lines of kudos to me for letting the guest talk.
Yeah, it's really important in an interview because, I mean, we're tuning in to hear the guest.
Right. Not me. You guys hear me every week. But that comment meant a lot to me because I try very hard because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I've heard so many podcast episodes where they have some fascinating, like an author or something on, and it's like the podcaster won't let the poor guy talk. It's like, I want to hear him talk. Let him talk. So I always, when I'm editing an interview and I have like my waveform and the guest waveform, you know, if it doesn't look like the guest is talking 90% of the time, like I'm talking too much. So
I see.
And I was very touched by Bob and Kaylin's appreciation of what we do. I actually got a little choked up. Hopefully you can't tell, but yeah, that was super cool. But anyway, we should stop swimming in circles here and move on to talk about episode 4, CQB.
Yeah.
So first, and for anyone that maybe didn't catch it, what CQB means is close quarters battle.
Okay, that's right.
So I tend to talk way too much. So Nikki, why don't you tell us what you thought about the episode, anything you want to talk about, and of course I'll jump in as I tend to do.
Okay. Well, the first thing that really stood out to me that I kind of had to grab my notepad for were the quote-unquote bandit ships that attacked the Donager. And I just thought they were so cool looking because they looked crystal-like.
Yes. So one thing that I thought was really cool about those stealth ships is their shape. And I would love to see like a better shot of them because it was very dark. But I understand that they're supposed to be mysterious. But the shape is actually really cool because it instantly reminded me of the F-117 stealth fighter. And I'm going to hand over a picture. This is a real aircraft that's a stealth aircraft, and I think was definitely an inspiration. Has those same kind of like what you called almost crystalline like shape to it to deflect radar, and in this case probably LiDAR.
Oh, I see.
Very cool stuff.
Yeah, they must have used that. I mean, the body of it is very close.
Yeah, I thought those were super cool too.
And as far as it being dark, sometimes it's about what you can't see.
Right.
And I think that made it more menacing.
Yeah. Like the same thing with the Donager. I still feel like I haven't really gotten my hero shot of the Donager that I wanted to get. And before I say my next sentence, I should say, in case you're new to the show, we are going to spoil the hell out of episode 4 CQB. So if you've not seen episode 4 CQB, stop now, go watch it, come back.
Especially for this episode.
Yeah. So I'm going to spoil in 3, 2, 1. And we never will now see a hero shot of the Donager, probably, at least not in the show, because it's molecules now at this point, yep. I think. But again, it's like, I'm sure, hopefully on the VR app, they're going to add it. Like, I'd love to be able to get on the VR app and look around the Donager and stuff.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But, like you just said, sometimes seeing less is more, and too much detail can kind of take a lot of the mystery and majesty and grandeur from something.
Right, exactly. So. Yeah. And it was something that Bob brought up in the interview about the screens. And you had asked him what we don't realize is actually special effects.
Sure, yeah.
And I noticed the screens on the Donager looked so neat. And I love the animations to open and close windows and the different gestures that the actors were using
very
to
Iron
interact
Man.
with them. Yes, very Iron Man, very futuristic and really cool.
Yeah. I wonder, maybe someone listening that knows more than me can tell me, was the first Iron Man movie where he's using his software or whatever that's virtual and he's using those motions, was that the first time we saw that in a movie? It was the first time I remember seeing it. And now it's so like, that's the way you do it. Like,
right,
it's a thing, to the point where when we have that technology, that's the way it'll act.
Right.
Just like we have flip phones because of Star Trek.
And tablets.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me know if you know of a movie or something that did that before Iron Man or was Iron Man, did they kind of invent that kind of, what would you even call that?
It was a user interface.
Right. It's a motion sensing, which we have now.
Yeah. Yeah. But this was kind of floating and it doesn't have a background to it. It's transparent.
It's holographic.
Yeah. Yeah. So that makes it even cooler.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to add about the ship?
The Donager? I don't think so. See, I kind of have my notes in order of the episode. So I kind of have to start at the beginning and go through it.
Okay.
So, I have one thing I want to say. I think it was on episode 10. I kind of went off a little bit about the Marines' armor.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lot more of the armor in episode 4. And watching it the second time now, I paid more attention to it. And I was a little disparaging of it. I think I called it like SCA/hockey armor. And it's definitely much better realized than that. It's actual, a lot of armor you see in TV shows would not be at all functional. Like, it doesn't protect the backs of the legs and things like that. It literally is SCA type armor.
Yeah.
It's just for show and looks. Where their armor is actually functional, or it appears functional.
Right.
And someone, I don't remember who, because I was wondering, is this supposed to be the powered armor? Because in the book, in the scene in CQB, when they're helping Holden and his crew escape from the Donager, in the book, they're wearing full powered armor.
Okay.
And I was kind of like, I hope this isn't supposed to be powered armor, because this is not powered armor. And someone on our Google Plus group said that somewhere it had been said that there wasn't going to be any powered armor in season 1. So I haven't been able to verify that. So it's speculation, but I'm sure that's the case. Or at least I'm sure that this isn't supposed to be powered armor. I mean, is fine of an eye for detail as they have.
Oh, yeah.
And that I'm fine with. Like, I think I even said that on the previous episode. It's like, if they just made a decision that, like, these Marines aren't in powered armor for whatever reason, like, I'm totally fine with that. My only problem would have been if they would have been like, no, that's totally powered armor.
Yeah. And we get a much different perspective on it since we read the books.
Right. And I think you, when we were talking about it before, Nikki, made a point of, well, maybe they're going to wait to introduce that with Bobby.
Yeah.
And I think you may be right. And I think that may be part of the impact of the introduction of her character, is not only do we finally see Bobby Draper, which so many of us are just waiting for, but we also get to see the Martian powered armor for the first time.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be badass.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm super stoked.
Me too.
So I got to say again, I love Captain Yao. I caught her name this time. I think her first name might have been Teresa. I didn't quite catch it. It was Teresa or Therese or something like that.
Okay.
But the captain of the Donager, I love her.
Yeah.
She was phenomenal.
Yeah. And her second in command.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to look up that actress's name, but I really am a big fan. And they just worked great together.
And I just got to say, kudos, salute. We have a captain and executive officer, both female, on the Donager, a Martian battleship.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a freaking battleship. It's not even a destroyer. It's a battleship. I mean, it's so awesome.
Yep.
I loved all of the combat sequences between the Donager and the stealth ships. So much of the science fiction we've seen is, lasers or phasers or turbo lasers or whatever you want to call them. And ever since the first time I read the first Honor Harrington book, I've been like, I want to see a battle like this. I want to see a space battle where they're using missiles and they're using point defense cannons and all this stuff. And it was so cool. It was so awesome. Like I'm such a nerd, like watching that. I'm like, I want to go to a museum where they have a full life-size mock-up of one of these missiles, like where it's like cut away and you can see all the parts in the engine and they have everything labeled. Like this is the fuel and this is the main ejector nozzle or whatever. Like I would love to see that. Yeah, and I just loved the tension that was in those scenes. And I kind of wonder if maybe there might not have been conversations in the making of maybe some of the Star Trek shows or whatever of, the way we do space battles isn't really that realistic. And, really they'd be way, way, way far away and they'd launch their salvos and have to wait minutes for them to, to converge. And people were probably just like, people aren't going to watch that. That would be so boring. How could we ever have that be tense and dramatic? And they totally did it. And I noticed that one of the ways they did it was they kept cutting.
Yeah.
They'd launch their missiles and then they cut to a scene with Miller.
Yeah.
And then we'd come back and we'd see the missiles hitting. And that was just a brilliant way to do it. And without losing the fact that they're waiting. And we had the conversation between Captain Yao and Holden and the intelligence officer.
Lopez.
Lopez is the Marine.
Oh, okay. Who's the intelligent officer?
Or maybe that is Lopez. I think I'm getting confused because in the book they were two different people, and I think in the show they're both Lopez.
Oh, okay.
The guy with the ponytail guy that interrogated him and was taking the pills.
He had a ponytail?
Yeah, he did a really small one.
Oh.
I was like, that's not regulation. But anyway, they were having this conversation while the missiles were coming, and that was pretty cool because every once in a while someone would be like 1 minute until they enter PDC range or whatever. And that was really cool. I really liked that.
I think there was even a point in the conversation where she had the screen open watching and she just closed it.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to have to wait for her. So.
Yeah. We got this. And then she got called off the bridge to go to communications level 2 or something like that. In the middle of a battle, I'm like, whoa, she must be really confident in her officers that she's going to leave the bridge.
And she was confident that they would win.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a line at the very end of the episode where she's like, I never thought we could lose.
Yep.
There was so much in that line.
I know. It was
awesome.
Actually moving, for lack of a better word. It was moving.
I have not seen this woman in anything before, the actress that plays Captain Yao, but she fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
She took what in the book wasn't actually, I don't think that was even a character in the book. I don't think we ever met Captain Yao in the book. Maybe we did, I don't remember, but at best a bit part in the book. And she made it like
important.
Yeah. A key role, I think, in this episode in establishing the scope and setting the tone. And the fact that, the Martians are on this like state of the art battleship that's, even better than what Earth can put out. So I don't know if you've caught this. There's been numerous references throughout the series so far, but Mars just has better ships than Earth does. Mm-hmm. And they thought they were invincible. And there's even points where they're like, oh, don't worry. Our PDC network can handle this. No problem.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the very end that they kind of realized that they were outmatched. And by then it was too late.
Yep. So I thought it was really fun when Miller went to Busy's apartment, who died in the last episode, and he found a slingshot club, which we read about in the book, but we read later. So it's really cool to see that now.
Yeah, there are quite a few things in this particular episode that are foreshadowing things to come, and that's one right there. Yeah, that was cool. One of the scenes we cut to is this scene with Avasarala and her grandson, I'm assuming, laying on the roof of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And massive foreshadowing there. And that is all I'm going to say. That was a fantastic scene. That's one of those scenes that probably after you've watched, like, say, season 5 or 6 of the show, you're going to go back and watch this scene and be like, oh my God. This has so much more meaning now. So real quickly, I thought I would explain a couple things for people who are watching and haven't read the books and maybe aren't like super into like sci-fi kind of stuff. And maybe, you know, you hear these terms thrown around and you don't really know what's what.
Great.
So we hear PDCs referenced a lot. PDC stands for Point Defense Cannon. And so we see these on the Donager. We also see them on the Tachi at the very end. And these are literally huge fucking guns that shoot bullets made of tungsten. And their main job is to shoot incoming missiles. Mm-hmm. So the battle between the Donager and the stealth ships was kind of like a classic space battle in this kind of world or this kind of setup, right? Where they're way, way far away from each other and they're lobbing missiles. You know, I love the shot where the two groups of missiles like pass each other.
Yeah.
That was so awesome. So the ship is, you know, probably thousands of kilometers away from you, shooting missiles at you. And so your ship has these cannons that as the missiles come in the range of the cannons, they start firing and they blow up the missiles before they hit the ship. Mm-hmm. And that's what the PDCs are, point defense cannons. And I imagine, and it seems like from what we're seeing in the show, that it's a largely automated system, computer controlled. And so, yeah, that's what those are. Obviously, we saw the missiles. So the ships, you know, those are long range weapons. And then when they got into closer range, they started using railguns. And railguns, I just about have a nerdgasm every time they talk about railguns. Because it's like, I'm so sick of lasers and phasers and all this like magical hokey shit. It's like railguns, now you got me interested. So a railgun basically is a projectile weapon, just like a normal gun, like what we're used to. But instead of using a controlled explosion to hurl a piece of metal or whatever at really high, you know, supersonic speeds, instead it uses electromagnets along a track to fling this metal object. And they can fire something far, far more quickly than, you know, a regular firearm could.
Wow, that's awesome.
And, you know, we've talked about using railgun type technology to send rockets in the orbit and whatnot. So,
mm-hmm. Oh, that's right.
It's a real thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure no one's built a railgun to the scale that we see on the Donager or even the Tachi, but, you know, it's real technology. It's not mumbo jumbo magic like we have in Star Trek and Star Wars. So that's the kind of stuff that I love about this show.
Yes. So I want to jump to the Nauvoo.
Yes, that's where I was going to go next too.
Excellent.
Great minds think alike.
That's right. And so Fred Johnson is there, which we might not have gotten his name yet.
My God, I love Fred.
Do you like the actor?
Oh, that's what I mean.
Okay.
He is so much cooler than what I pictured, and I love his voice.
Yes.
Oh my God.
A great voice for the role. And this character is the one that I've had requested when we did our character reviews.
Yes.
And actor reviews. And a lot of people are big fans of Chad Coleman, who plays Fred.
I can see why. I don't think I've seen him in something before, but I can see. I want to go find shit he's in now.
Yeah, well, maybe we can start Walking Dead and try that. But people love him.
We did try Walking Dead, remember?
Oh, that's right, we did.
Is he in that?
Yes.
I just don't really get into zombies.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Sorry.
But the visual effects for those shots were beautiful, and just I thought it was stunning the way that we got to see Tycho Station.
Yeah, I loved Fred's smackdown of that Mormon douchebag.
Yeah.
That was so great. Man, he put that man in his place. And you could see it too. The guy that was playing the Mormon, he did a great job. Like you could see it in his face that like he knew he'd just been outmaneuvered and there wasn't really anything he could do about it. And Fred's like, well, you know, if you don't want pieces to start falling off your ship half the way to where you're going, you know, you might not want to get rid of me. Not so subtle wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know? Oh, that was brilliant. I loved it. That was so great.
One of the next scenes that I want to talk about is on the ship when they're being held captive. And by them, I mean Naomi Nagata and Alex and Amos, and Holden's up in front. He's not with them. And Alex kind of loses it and he starts to panic.
Yeah.
Because they're being attacked and he's never been in this situation before.
Oh, it's such a great scene.
It was. Shed attempts to calm him down by, I think, trying to throw him some kind of medication.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it seemed like.
Yeah. And the next scene, the medication is in the air. Alex is trying to catch it. And you hear a loud boom. It almost sounds like a hammer hitting something. And you find out that Shed has lost his head.
Oh no, Shed's head. Shed's dead.
Yeah, it was, I think I stopped breathing for a minute.
Oh, that was great. That was so great. I love the effects. I don't know, just every scene in this movie, like this movie. See, it seems like a movie. It's so good.
Right.
In this episode, like from the timing to the acting to the actual, like the dialogue, the words that they're saying, like everything was just perfect. It was just so brilliant.
Yeah, it was great. And the way the blood was trickling out through the hole. And they had to seal the holes as quickly as possible. And when they did this, and when gravity came back, the blood just dropped down onto everything.
And it goes like,
Shed. Yeah.
That's so great. I love that. I want to know how they did that sound. How did you guys make that sound? That was great.
I was so horrified.
Something I want to mention that came to my mind the second time watching this that I don't think we've mentioned yet is I love the music.
Yes.
And especially in that scene when they're like tossing the glue gun, for lack of a better term, back and forth into 0G. Like the music was just so fucking fantastic. It was just like, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
It fit the scene perfectly.
You know, in a previous life, I wanted to, I used to be like really, really hardcore into music. Like I was a musician and I wanted to be a musician until my parents talked me out of it, which I kind of wish they wouldn't have. But anyway, what I wanted to do was I wanted to do film scores.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to, if not write the scores, at least perform them and be in the orchestra because it's just amazing how you can use music to convey emotion. And in like that scene, how the music just carried this tension and this drama and this impending something. You don't know what, but you know something is coming. It's just so great. I love the music. I can't wait for the soundtrack. I'm going to buy that thing and like listen to it all the time.
It's that now it's serious.
Yeah. Maybe Sci-Fi will give us permission to use it for our show. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, that would be great.
Just have that going in the background all the time.
That would be awesome. So we find out in this episode that Havelock is alive.
Yeah.
Now, he's not doing well, but he's alive.
Yeah, we don't know yet if he's going to pull through or not.
Right.
It definitely seemed like it could go either way at this point. I love that the Belter woman is like picking his pocket.
Right.
And it was kind of cool because it was like she was trying to steal from a corpse. Like that's what she thought was happening. But as soon as he moved, she's like, oh shit. And then she went and got help.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool because it shows it's like people are desperate and people will steal. But, you know, there's this Belter thing of you help someone in need, you know, and I don't know that in the show yet they've really, you know, shown a light on that yet. But the Belters, there's this philosophy. Well, I guess they did a little bit in the first episode when they were debating whether or not to answer the distress call. But there's this philosophy of, you know, we're out here in this environment that every millisecond of every day is trying to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way any of us has even the remotest chance is if we all pull together. And so the Belters have this philosophy of you help each other out. And I think we saw that in that scene, because I think if that would have happened in New York today, she would have just ran away. She wouldn't have called the cops, right?
Yeah.
And she probably would have taken his wallet and then ran away. But she didn't do that. She went and got help. And I thought that was really cool. That was kind of a moving scene for me, because I expected her to just like run away.
Yeah.
I thought he was fucked at that point. And then she's like, I'm going to get help. And then she's like, there's an officer, he needs help. And
yep.
That was cool. And I love that because, people love to try to pigeonhole stuff. And I've actually heard people say, oh, this is dystopian science fiction. And I don't think it is. I think it's actually realistic science fiction. You have utopian where, in the future, like Star Trek, like in the future, everything's going to be wonderful and everybody's going to love each other and hold hands and everybody will be equal and there won't be any war, disease, or violence and everything will be wonderful. Mm-hmm. And then on the opposite side, you have dystopian where, it's like everything's going to suck and we're all going to be eating each other for lunch and stuff. And this isn't either. I feel like this is more like, no, this is how it would really be. It's like, there's a lot of materialism and there's a lot of villainizing people or making people the other, like I'm a Belter, so fuck Martians and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's still, humanity and there's still compassion and there's still, because Havelock's an Earther.
Right.
And I'm sure the character knew that he was an Earther and a cop.
Yeah.
And she still helped him. And that was really cool.
Yeah.
So it's not dystopian, because if it was dystopian, that wouldn't have happened.
No.
She would have picked his pocket and ran. Maybe hid his body somewhere so no one would find it.
So we find out in this episode that there's a Phoebe Station cover-up.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, huh? We still don't know much.
No.
There was a scene where Holden was talking to Lopez and was like, hey, we're all going to die anyway, so what the fuck is up with Phoebe Station?
Yeah.
And we find out that the Donager was dispatched there because they'd lost contact. They show up, everybody's dead. Everybody's been burned alive and like fused to the ice walls of the cavern or something. I didn't quite catch all that. But, at first they think, some horrible accident happened. And then they figure out, no, this was done on purpose. And obviously they're trying to cover something up.
Yep.
But we don't know what. Not yet.
Yes. But let's remember something's going on.
Yes. Yeah. There's something. And you remember when the Martian intelligence officer was interrogating Holden, he asked him about Phoebe Station.
Yeah, I do.
And they were convinced that they'd gone to Phoebe Station. And I think at the end, he finally realizes that they didn't. So another scene I really like. There are just so many touching scenes in this for an episode that was so much action that there were these like human moments. And one of those that really like kind of got to me was the scene with Alex and Naomi and Amos and Shed's corpse.
Yeah.
Where they've sealed the hull breaches, but they're like, we've got hard vacuum all around us. Unless someone comes to get us, we're fucked. Eventually the air's going to run out and we're done. And so, they're like, well, if one of us was unconscious, we'd have that much more time because, someone unconscious breathes more slowly than someone who's conscious. So they start arguing about who's going to be the one to go under. And Alex is like, well, Amos, you're an Earther, so you use more oxygen than I am because I'm a Martian, which that was some interesting setting kind of building there. Mm-hmm. And Amos is like, yeah, but I can carry you. You can't carry me. And so Alex sits down and, he gets ready to take the tranquilizer and he's like, I want to wake up. And both times I saw that, I was like, fuck no. If I was Alex, there is no way I would trust those two people enough to do that.
Yeah.
There's no way. And they've so much in these episodes, they've been showing how they don't know each other. They don't trust each other. Everyone's got secrets, and you've got the Martians trying to kind of foment discord among them by like, did you know Naomi was OPA? And did you know Alex was a Navy boy? And,
Yeah.
And for him to do that, like, I think that says more about Alex's character than everything else he's done put together. Like, that was so heroic and brave. And then the part that I found really touching was how Amos treated him. All the way from, I mean, we don't really see it, but he suits him up in his EVA suit and he's like, I'll carry him.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a moment of, well, maybe we should just leave him.
Yeah.
Like, and that never entered his mind.
Right. And I think it was because Alex took one for the team, as Amos put it.
Yeah.
And Alex seemed pretty convinced to me that Naomi was OPA.
Yeah.
So I was actually surprised that he did that.
Yeah, that was so awesome. That was great. I wanted to give both those men a big hug in that scene. I was like, you guys are awesome. You're going to make me cry.
So let's jump in and talk about the epic catwalk scene.
Yeah. So this is the one I mentioned earlier that I wanted to kind of bring in the conversation that I had with Bob and Kaylin, because we talked a bit about this scene in the interview.
Yep.
And this was the one, if you remember the interview, Bob was talking about how originally they were in 0G during that, and people are like running on the walls and the ceilings. And then they realize, oh no, there's gravity at this point, and they had to kind of rethink how they did that scene. And I remember Bob said something along the lines of, hopefully when you see that, you're like, yeah, they got that right. And like, they fucking totally got that right. That little maneuver that Holden pulls with Naomi is probably, I think, the single coolest 0G thing I've seen, period, anywhere. That was so cool.
Yeah, I had to be like, wait, what am I watching? What's going on? Why is he doing that?
Yeah. The first time we watched it, like we saw it and you were like, wait a minute, what just happened? I don't understand. So we backed it up and watched it again. And I kind of explained like what was, so for anyone that was a little like, what was happening? So they're Holden and Naomi are running across the catwalk. They get like halfway or 2/3 of the way across. And the engines go out, which means gravity's gone. So suddenly they're in 0G. So they float up and they've got some forward momentum. So they're kind of floating up and kind of floating forward, but definitely not fast enough to get where they're going before they get filled with bullets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Holden thinks very quickly. He hooks his line to Naomi's suit, and then he kicks her away from him. And what happens is, because they're in 0G, he's basically pushing her away, which pushes him in the opposite direction and gives him just enough momentum that he's able to get his gravity boots to connect to the deck plate. And then he pulls her back with the line so that she can get her boots on the deck plate. And then they can continue on. That was so brilliant, and it looked so good. It was great.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to how well that the effects of that were done. That, you were a little like, at first you were like, wait, what happened? But then when I kind of pointed out and we watched it again, you're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if they would have gotten anything a little bit wrong, you would have been like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But they got her. And I can't imagine. I'd love to know, maybe when Bob and Kaylin come back, they can tell us how many hours and how many takes it took to get that right. Because I'm sure they were both on wires at the time. It must have been rough.
Yeah. Well, Bob said he's on set at least some of the time. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that was super cool. And again, I love the music during that scene. The music was great.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. And, something about Amos, I never thought of it when we were watching the show, but now that you discussed how Amos is treating Alex as a little bit different than he did before, he got shot and he still picked Alex up and dragged him across there.
Amos is a fucking bear, man.
Yeah.
One bullet is not going to slow him down very much.
But he could have just been like, fuck this, I'm running for it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I actually, the first time we saw that, I was confused and I thought Alex had gotten shot because Amos was the one still supporting him. And then I realized when we backed it up and watched it again, I'm like, oh no, Amos got shot. Holy cow. He's a beast, man.
And I like those helmets that they're wearing because you can see their entire face.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of I already brought up how, I apologize for dissing the Marine's armor in the previous episode because it's now that we've seen more of it, it's pretty cool. It's not powered armor, but it's pretty clear it's not supposed to be. It's, what they wear on the ship, which I think makes more sense. I don't think it really makes sense that they would be using powered armor on the ship, but there's some cool, some kind of nanotech going on with the armor. We saw a couple. There's a scene where Holden's like investigating the whoever it is that had boarded the ship that he thought was down, and the guy like grabs him, and he's like Holden's like pointing the gun at him, and the Marines come up and they like blow his arm off, and you see like the suit like cover the wound.
Yeah.
And then you see in the end when they're escaping and Lopez comes across the catwalk, there's something going on. Like obviously he's been shot, and you see like something going on with the suit. Like it seems like it's like repairing itself or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It really reminds me of in the Scalzi books, like Old Man's War, when they have actually, it wasn't Old Man's War. It was the second one. Do you remember what the second book was called?
No.
Where they're dropping from orbit, and they're basically what do you call it? Where you basically like parachute from orbit, and they have this like molecule thick like nano suit around them, and everything's like nanotech. Like it really reminded me of that. It was super cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. I didn't notice that on his suit though.
Yeah, it looks like almost like this smoke or something coming off of his suit.
Okay.
But I'm not sure exactly what was happening there, but the way I interpreted it was he'd been shot at least once, and the suit was like repairing itself and like sealing the breach, and we were seeing like some atmosphere escape because they were in pressurized suits at that point. So
okay. But
yeah, that was really cool. And then, the last thing is really, for me, what this episode was really about was the fucking Tachi, and that whole sequence of them getting on it and getting out was just amazing.
Yes. That was my favorite part, when they're trying to escape and they make it onto the ship, and the guns. It's interesting because Alex gets into the front seat, and Holden just screams at him. He's just like, "Get us out of here." And Alex just like, "Okay." I don't remember his response, but he was just like, "You got it."
Well, he's still half tranquilized at this point, which is why he gave himself the juice. And he's also divulged earlier in the episode that he was basically a glorified bus driver. So he's never flown a combat ship before.
Wow.
I mean, this is a Corvette. So he's never flown anything like this before.
Yeah, and he unlocks the guns. That's all he does. He just unlocks them. We don't see him targeting or, carefully maneuvering with them.
The Tachi does it.
Yeah, that's it. Because Bob said something in the interview about the ships actually having artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think I really saw it here, where the guns seem to rotate and find their targets.
Yeah, they there are all these, the boarding people were firing at them from various positions around this hangar. And yeah, the PDCs come out and they're like tracking where the fire is coming. Like if you watch the scene, they're actually laying down fire from where the fire is coming, from the opposing fire is coming from. It's not like they're just shooting randomly around.
Yeah.
And I guess we watched it like 4 or 5 times and we couldn't see it, but I will take his word for it. I think it was either Daniel or James S.A. Corey on Twitter said that there's a shot in there where the Tachi like bangs up against something and the PDC cannon like actually retracts right before it hits to like protect itself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And we tried, a few times to see it. And I think just like if I went on my computer where I could go frame by frame, I'm sure I could see it. So I'm going to take his word for it, even though I couldn't see. I really wanted to see it. We tried like 4 times, but we just couldn't on the TV. We couldn't go frame by frame.
Right.
But yeah, that was super cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I love the Tachi. That was amazing. When he brings the PDCs out and they just start firing.
Yeah, I got the feeling of a beast being unleashed.
Yeah.
It was like they just needed to be unlocked, and then the ship just went. Like it knew what it had to do.
Yeah. And I hope you notice those big fucking guns on the front of the Tachi.
Oh, yeah.
Those are, is it a spoiler if I tell people what those are? Is that a spoiler?
I don't think so.
Those are railguns, baby. Those are keel-mounted railguns. If it's like it is in the book, just like the Donager had. And you remember the Donager was like, we've never seen railguns on ships this small. Well, the Tachi's, I think, quite a bit bigger than those stealth ships were. But,
right.
But yeah, I think the Corvette is the smallest class ship that they normally would mount a railgun to. So
okay.
Yeah, that was cool stuff.
It was. And it kind of takes on new meaning when Alex talks to the ship. Because if the ship actually has AI, it conceivably understands.
Well, you notice there's a bit where they first get on board where Lopez just says into the air, he says, release all operations or commands or whatever to everyone on board. Like he basically gave everybody on the ship access.
Right.
Because before that, he probably would have been the only one that could have done anything with the ship,
Right.
And, there was something kind of subtle there that people might not have quite caught what happened. And I'm going to assume that this is the same as in the book. It looked like it was. So they're getting ready to take off, and Lopez tells Alex, basically, take evasive maneuvers. I want you to do maximum burn and get us the fuck out of here as fast as you can and make sure no one follows us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Alex does, I love this part. He's like, you got it, Haas. And then he's like, yes, sir. He gives him that respect, which I thought was really cool. And then Lopez turns to Holden and he says, I wish I could have seen an ocean on Mars. That would have been something or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
And I think what maybe you didn't catch or didn't realize was he's going to die. And I think at that moment he knows it.
Right.
Because he has taken some kind of injury. He's probably got internal injuries, and they're going to do a high G burn, which you see at the very end of the episode, you see Holden pass out.
Yeah.
So when you are pulling that many Gs, if you've got like, say, a broken rib, it could be enough to push that rib into an organ or something like that. And that's what happened in the book was the high G burn actually was what killed. I mean, he probably would have died anyway, but that was like the killing blow. Yeah. And I think the character knew that when he said, maximum burn out of here, like he knew like, this is my end. Like, I'm not going to survive this.
Yeah.
But, the mission comes first.
Yep. Yeah. His character was fascinating.
Yeah. I think it was so cool how in the course of was he on 2 episodes, 3 and 4?
I thought it was just on, oh no, you're right, 3 and 4. Yeah.
So in the course of 2 episodes, that character went from, in my mind, a total prick, like, oh, this guy's such a dick, to like I had a lot of respect for that character and thought he was awesome and was sorry to see him go because I would have liked to have seen more development of that character because he was so cool.
Yeah. If nothing else, it made me say, wow, Ace, he's a human being with complexity.
Right.
And I really like that about this show, actually. I know we keep going on about it, but each character is more than something that you could sum up in a few words.
Right. And there's no, this person is evil and this person is good.
Right.
It's like, no, people are people. All right. Well, I think that's everything I can think of to gush about. You, Nikki?
Same here.
All right. So we'll wrap up episode 12 of Expanse, the unofficial podcast. If you would like to reach us, a great way to do so is email us at expansepodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Lex Starwalker.
You can follow me at Nikki Starwalker.
And I'm also on Google plus Lex Starwalker. We'll be back next week with another episode. We'll be talking about the 5th episode, which I am super excited to watch. I saw someone on Twitter make some cheeky comment about, hey, Sci-Fi, when are you releasing the next 4 episodes online so we can watch them all at once? And yeah, that would be great, Sci-Fi. don't make me just do 1 a week. Come on. I tell you what, Sci-Fi, I will make you a deal. If you put the next 4 episodes out this week online, I promise you, I will watch at least 1 episode of The Expanse every week until you put the next 4 out. Scout's honor.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to do that anyway. Who am I kidding? I'll probably be watching all 4 of them again. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Definitely shoot us an email or a tweet or a message on Google+. Let us know what you think of the show. We'd love to hear your comments. Let us know what was your favorite part of CQB. Of the first 4 episodes, what was your favorite episode so far? CQB is definitely mine. How about you, Nikki?
Oh, I suppose it is. But it's really hard to pick one.
You don't have to say it just because that's what I said.
It's almost like whatever I last watched was my favorite episode.
All right. So until next week, conserve your oxygen and your water. Resources are precious in the outer solar system.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Flip and burn, baby. Flip and burn.